The first question is the term s plus 1 a factor of the polynomial p of s to the 6th plus s to the 5th minus s plus 1? That's the question. That's what you would see written in your book or on your test. Is s plus 1 a factor of this? Right? So the easiest way to figure that out is to think back to what the factor theorem says. The factor theorem says something is only a factor of a polynomial if the corresponding number in that factor is basically a root, which means you plug the thing in and it equals 0. But you just have to be a little bit careful about how you set it up. So I just want to make sure we do everything by the book so you understand. When it's asking if this is a factor of this polynomial, another way of thinking about what it's saying is the following thing true? Is it true that s plus 1 times, I'm going to write it as q of x, that means whatever other factors the polynomial has. You see there's 6 of them here, so there's 6 more factors. We're wrapping all of that up in terms of q of x. Is that equal to, I said x, I'm sorry, it's not x, it's s in this case. Is that equal to p of s? So in other words, can this polynomial p of s be written as s plus 1 times more factors? It's kind of like saying, is 5 a factor of 12? Can 5 times something be 12? That's what it's saying. Of course not. 5 times nothing is 12, so it's not a factor. Or if you're asking if 2 is a factor of 12, can 2 times some other stuff equal 12? Yes, of course. So if you're asking if this is a factor, it's the same thing as saying, is this times more factors equal to this polynomial? Is that true? So I'll put a question mark there. And the way that you figure out if it is true is by substituting in the value of 1 into the polynomial. However, you have to be careful. You have to figure out, is p of negative 1 equal question mark 0? That's going to tell you if it's a root. There's a couple of ways to think about why you have to switch the sign of it. The easiest way is to think about how the factor theorem is written. It says roots of the form x minus c. Then you plug in the value of c. But you have a plus here, so it's like an s minus a negative 1, so you have to plug in a negative 1. Another way to think about it is you've been factoring things your whole life, so if you know if it's a root, then the factored form of this stuff has to equal 0. So if you set this thing equal to 0, then s would be negative 1. So you're plugging the value of negative 1 in to see if it's equal to 0. So if you put the negative 1 in here, you'll raise it to the 6th power. Then you put a negative 1 in, raise it to the 5th power. Then you'll put the negative 1 in for s. And then you put it in for 1, and you're asking yourself, does this equal 0? If it does equal 0, then negative 1 is a root of this equation. And we know that all roots correspond to all factors. X minus the root is equal to the factor. So x minus minus 1, so that's why it would be s plus 1. So when it's an even number of multiplied time, negative 1 multiplied by itself an even number of times, you just get a positive 1 back. An odd number of times means you get a negative 1 back. And then you have a plus 1 here, and then you have a plus 1 here. So this is 1 minus 1, essentially, so you get a 0. And this is going to give you a 2. So this is 2, which is not equal to 0. So because you've basically shown that s is equal to negative 1 is not a root of this equation, then the corresponding factor here, s plus 1, is not a factor. Because p of negative 1, when s was equal to negative 1, was not equal to 0. So the answer is it's not a factor. That's really the bottom line. If it were to come out to be equal to 0, then you would say that it was a factor. All right? Now the next one looks much more complicated because I'm going to have some radicals involved, but the same concept applies. You see, in polynomials, you can have radicals as the roots. Of course, you could have plus or minus the square root of 2 being the roots of the polynomial. You can also have imaginary and complex numbers being the roots of the polynomial. So all of that stuff is fair game for the factor theorem. It all applies. Nothing is really different. It's just when you get to radicals and imaginary numbers, you have to be a little more careful to not make simple mistakes. So the next question goes like this. It says, is the factor x minus the square root of 3 a factor of the polynomial p of x is equal to x cubed minus 2x squared minus 3x plus 6. So, is it a factor of that? Now, what I like to typically do in the beginning is to show you that when it's asking if it's a factor, what it's really asking, is it possible to say that this thing x minus the square root of 3 times more functions of x, more factors, because there's 3 of them, right? Is it possible to say that that's equal to p of x, right? Can I write that down? Is that true? And if it is true, then it's a factor. And if it's not true, then it's not a factor. I like to always write that down in the beginning because we're going to be using this fact a little bit later on. When it's a factor, it says that this times more stuff can be equal to that polynomial. And then the way that you really test it with the factor theorem is you say, well, the factor is of the form x minus the square root of 3, so you have to plug in the value of square root of 3 and see if it's equal to 0. The factor form is x minus this, so if you were to move it to the other side of 0, it would be x is equal to the square root of 3. You're going to test that to see if it's equal to 0. Basically, you're trying to find if the square root of 3 is a root or not. And so you put it into the equation. So you have the square root of 3, and you're going to cube this, right? So it looks ugly, but we're going to get there. And then 2 times the square root of 3, and we're going to square this one. And then 3 times the square root of 3, and then plus 6. Now we have to crank through and see, is this equal to 0 or not? If it is equal to 0, then we have a factor on our hands, and if it's not, then it's not. Now, you're going to have to go back and think through the rules of radicals. When you have a square root, or a radical of any kind, raised to a power, I can actually move the power inside the radical like this. And this basically boils down to another way of thinking about it is this square root is like a 1/2 power. Right? So if you don't remember that particular rule, think of it in terms of this. Think of it as 3 to the 1/2 power. That's what the square root is. But that whole thing is cubed. So it's a power raised to a power, which means that I can write it as 3 to the 3/2, right? Because 3 times 1/2. But if I can write it as 3 to the 1/2 power, then I can also write it as 3 to the 3rd power, and I can bring the radical on the outside. Why? Because 3 times 1/2 being on the inside like that is exactly the same as if the 3 is on the outside, because that's why you can bring the exponent in, is because they're both exponents and it doesn't matter the order of the multiplication. So whether I take the square root and then cube it, or cube it and then the square root, it's the same exact thing. So I can bring that cube on the inside. That's the only thing I'm trying to tell you here. And then the 2 goes here, but the square and the square root end up canceling, so I have just a 3 there. And then I have minus 3 times the square root of 3, and then plus 6, and I have to see, is this equal to 0? So what I'm going to have here is 3 cubed is 3 times 3 times 3, which is 27, square root of that, minus 6 minus 3 square root of 3 plus 6 equals question mark 0. Well, I can see right away that I actually have a negative 6 and a positive 6, so those actually go away. So I look like I'm, I'm starting to get closer anyway. But what is the square root of 27? It's 3 times 9, and then 9 is 3 times 3. So I have a pair right here. So the square root of 27 turns out to be, the 3 comes out of the radical, the square root of 3, this one here, stays inside the radical, and then the minus 6 and the plus 6, they subtracted to 0, so then I have minus 3 times the square root of 3. And that is actually equal to 0. So when I put the square root of 3 into this polynomial and crank through all of it, it's very difficult to see if it's going to subtract to 0 until you start dealing with the radicals. But once you do, you figure out that it is equal to 0. So what that means is x is equal to the square root of 3 is a root. And what that also means is, from the factor theorem, x minus the square root of 3 is a factor. And so that's the answer. X minus the square root of 3 is a factor. And again, I'm drilling it into your head that when something is a factor, what it means is you can take that thing times more terms and equal it, and that can be equal to the polynomial, much like the factors of 30. You could say 5 is a factor of 30 because 5 times more stuff, in this case 6, could equal 30. But 7 is not a factor of 30 because 7 times nothing can equal 30. The reason I keep writing this down is because in the next lesson, we're going to do a slightly different kind of problem where we're going to have to use that fact a lot. And I want you to be comfortable with understanding what this means. So the next question, is this the last one or not? Let's see here. Now we have 2 more. They're not hard. But the next question is the following. Is z minus I, right, a factor of the polynomial p of z? Is z to the 7th power, holy moly, look at that, plus z to the 6th, plus z to the 5th, plus z to the 4th, plus z third, I hope I don't run out of space, plus z squared plus z plus 1. I barely fit it there. Lots of little terms there. So it looks like a nightmare, right? Is this thing a factor of this thing, this entire enormous polynomial in terms of z? And another way of basically saying is it true? If this thing is a factor, then what you're saying is z minus I can be multiplied by more functions of z, the other factors, because I have 7 altogether. So this could be 1, and I would have 6 more here. And that would basically equal p of z. Is it possible? That's what a factor means, right? So how do we check and see if that's the case? Well, what we're going to see is if I plug into this, the factor is z minus I, so I'm going to plug in positive I and ask if it's equal to 0. Why positive I? Because if you think about setting this thing equal to 0, then the factor would be, the root would be z is equal to I. So that's what I want to plug in and see if it's equal to 0. If I were going to check it, if I knew what all the factors were, I'd set them equal to 0, then z would be equal to I. That would be a factor. So I have to put the value of I into here and raise it to the 7th power. And then I have to put the I and raise it to the 6th, and then to the 5th, and then to the 4th. And this is going to be a long process here. And then to the 3rd, and then to the 2nd, and then to the 1st, and then 1. And I'm going to check and see if it's equal to 0. It's a lot of stuff here. There are lots of different ways to figure out how to do this, but the thing is, when you're multiplying I times itself a bunch of times, it's very, 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 very easy to make a mistake. I'm going to show you the easiest way that I think there is to do it. You might look and say, well, I do it a different way. That's fine. Do whatever you want. I'm just showing you the way I do it, the way I think it's the easiest way to think about it. You know that I squared, I times itself, is equal to -1. That's something you always know. I squared is -1. So instead of trying to write I times itself 7 times and figure out what happens, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write the 7th power like this. The first term I'm going to write is I times I squared times I squared times I squared. This thing is equal to this. Why am I writing it like that? Because I know this is -1 times -1 times -1, and then I just have an I left over, and I don't have to worry about, I don't have to think about multiplying all 7 of them out and trying to figure it out, because I know that all of these are equal to -1. Then I'm going to add to that this term, which is I squared times I squared times I squared. That's I to the 6th power. This term is going to be a single I by itself, and then it's going to be I squared times I squared. So that's 2, 4, and then 5. That's I to the 5th power. And then I to the 4th power is I squared times I squared. That's I to the 4th power. And then I to the 3rd power is I times I squared. And then I to the 2nd power is I squared. And then I have I, and then I have 1. Again, you might look and do it a different way. That's okay. I mean, everybody has different ways of doing things. I have absolutely no hard feelings with people choosing different things. That's fine. But for me, it's easier to do it this way. Why is it easier for me to do it this way? The reason it's easier for me is because I know that this is -1 times -1 times -1. And in my mind, I can say -1 times -1 times -1 is just going to be -1. So I have an I out here, that's true, but I have multiplied by -1. All this stuff equals -1. So really what I have here is -I, -1 times I. Then for this term, it's -1 times -1 times -1. It's all real numbers. They multiply together to give me -1. So I'll just put a plus -1 right here. Okay, so I'll do a -I plus a -1 like this. Here, this is going to be -1 times -1. That gives me +1 times I, so it's going to be plus an I. Then I have -1 times -1 gives me a +1. Then I have -1 times I, which gives me -I. Then I have this is -1 right here, so I have a -1 here. Then I have an I. Then I have a 1. All right, so it looks like a nightmare, but it's really not so bad now, because now I'm going to strip out all of the negative signs and strip out all the parentheses. So it's going to be -I. This is -1. This is plus I. This is +1. This is -I, this is -1, this is +I, this is +1. Okay, now we're making progress. So how do I do this stuff? This -I is going to cancel with this one. That's going to give me 0. This -1 is going to cancel with this one. That's going to give me 0. So all of these terms up to this point are completely canceled each other. Then this negative I right here with this one, positive I, that's going to give me 0. And then this negative 1 is going to cancel with this one, which is going to give me 0. So you see, all of these add to 0, and all of these to add to 0. It's difficult to see it. I mean, you could put all the i's together and all the 1's together. That's fine, but this is just the way I chose to do it. So what I end up getting is the answer is 0. So because I plug in the value of the root, I know that z is equal to I is a root of this equation. So I know that z minus I is a factor. If I had gotten 2 or 3 or negative 1 or any of that, then I would not have been a root, and so z minus I would not have been a factor. So you see, the factor theorem all boils down to figuring out if what you have been given is a root of the equation or not. If it is a root, then you have a factor on your hands. Z minus that or x minus that term. Last question, and believe it or not, it's actually not as difficult as the one before. The question is the factor x minus 2i a factor of the polynomial p of x, x to the third plus x squared plus 4x plus 4. So is it a factor of that or not? And again, I've been saying over and over again, I like to write this because we're going to use it a lot later. Is p of x expressible as this factor, x minus 2i, times more stuff, for lack of a better word? In other words, if it's a factor, then it should be able to be multiplied by other factors to give me the polynomial. Is that true? And in order to figure that out, what we need to do is we need to evaluate this polynomial at the value of 2i. Why the value of 2i? Because the factor is x minus 2i. Or you can think of it as, if this really were a factor, I would set it to 0, and I'd move the 2i over, and then the potential root would be equal to 2i. So I'm going to check and see if it's a root. I got to stick 2i into here. 2i cubed, 2i squared. I have 4. Let me think of the right way to do this. Yeah. Then I have 4. Then I have 2i. Everywhere I have an x, I have to stick a 2i in there. And then I have 4. All right. So now I need to think. When you have 2 times I, it's the same as 2 times x. When you have the whole thing raised to a power, the power goes in and applies to everything on the inside. So what you really have here is 2 to the third power times I to the third power. And what you have here is 2 squared I squared. And what you have here, 4 times 2 is 8, so that's just 8 times I, and you have the 4. Okay, so this is going to be 8, 2 times 2 times 2, and then the I cubed, I'm going to write it as I times I squared. And then this will be a 4 times I squared, and then an 8i, and then a 4. And then what I'm going to have here, this is a negative 1. I squared is a negative 1, so it would be a negative 8i. This is a negative 1 times the 4 would be minus 4. Then I have 8i, and then I have 4. And you can see the 8i and the negative ai go to 0, and the 4 and the negative 4 go to 0, so you get a 0. So because 2i is a root of the equation, then you know that x minus 2i is a factor. If and only if it's a root, and we've proven that it is a root, so it is a factor. X minus 2i is a factor. All right, so what we have learned is that the factor theorem is really not that hard to apply, but you have to be very careful, especially with the plus and the minus signs. You know, it can be very easy to make mistakes. The bottom line is, if you're asked if something is a factor, then you have to look in here and figure out how to test if something is a root. So the factors are always written as x minus something, so you check to see if 2i is a root. You do that by plugging it into the polynomial. If you were to have a plus sign in here, then you would have to check negative 2i and go from there. So that's what the factor theorem is used for. We've also been taking great pains to say if something is a factor of a polynomial, it can be written, that polynomial can be expressed as that factor times more maybe unknown factors. The reason I keep writing this is because I can find these unknown factors by doing division. I can take this polynomial and divide by this and figure out what other factors might exist. And that is actually what we're going to be doing starting in the next lesson. So make sure you can do all of these problems and follow me on to the next lesson in algebra, where we're going to be continuing to work on the factor theorem. Learn anything at mathandscience.com.